Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going deep, really deep, into a case from Spring Hill, Florida.
Florida, huh?
Yeah, usually we think of Florida beaches, sunshine.
Yeah, right.
But this story, it's dark.
Oh, I bet.
Two brothers, Stanley and Sean Eckard. This rivalry, it goes way beyond typical sibling stuff. And it ends in a really, truly shocking act of violence.
So what makes this case so different, so, I don't know, compelling?
Well, we got to figure out, right? Was it cold-blooded, jealousy, or something else? Something deeper?
A lot of layers to unpack them.
Exactly. So we've got these reports, right? They describe Stanley, the older brother, kind of loner, brooding.
Okay.
Sean, the younger one, total opposite. Life of the party. Popular. You see where this is going.
Classic conflict.
Right. But it gets more complicated because, well, you know how brothers can be. There's this girl.
Oh, boy.
Sean starts dating her, and guess what? Stanley had a thing for her, too.
That's never good. Talk about adding fuel to the fire.
No kidding. Yeah. And it wasn't just about personality, It's almost like Sean was succeeding, and that just amplified everything, made Stanley more resentful.
I see. So we've got the classic setup, but with this added layer of romantic rivalry. What a recipe for disaster.
Total disaster. And people noticed, friends, family, they saw Stanley getting more and more volatile, withdrawn, like a ticking time bomb.
Yikes.
And then, boom, June 19th, 2010, it all explodes.
What?
Argument at the family home, turns physical, Stanley attacks Sean.
Oh, no.
But here's where it gets really, really disturbing. We're not talking a simple fight. Stanley, he just completely loses it. Uses his bare hands, strangles Sean, the official report, blunt force trauma to the head and neck.
That's brutal. Sounds like pure rage.
Yeah. And then, instead of calling for help, panic sets in. He buries Sean, a shallow grave in the backyard.
Wow. So was it premeditated, this whole thing, or just a horrific reaction in the moment?
Right. That's the million-dollar question. Did he plan it, or did he just snap? I mean, burying the body, does that point to guilt, or is it just pure panic? It's going to be fascinating to try to untangle this.
Absolutely. And there's another piece to consider too, right? The family dynamics. It sounds like there was already tension in the house, especially with their mom being sick.
Oh, that's a great point. And we know their dad found the grave. Can you imagine the horror of that? I mean, what role did the parents play in all this? Could they have seen this coming? Did they maybe even contribute to the tension between the brothers? So many questions.
It's tough, families, they're complicated. We can't know for sure what was going on with the Eckards behind closed doors.
Right.
But you got to think, all that unspoken stuff, resentment building up.
Like a pressure cooker.
Exactly. And society doesn't help, especially for young men, bottling it all up.
Be strong. Don't show weakness. All that.
Right. So we have Stanley, maybe struggling with something, taking care of his mom, rivalry with his brother.
Then add the girl rejecting him. Sean seemingly doing so well.
It's a lot. It all adds up.
Yeah, it does. So, did he just snap? Or was it planned all along?
Back to that big question.
Let's talk about the trial. How did it all play out in court?
Well, the prosecution, they went hard, focused on the evidence, the brutality.
Trying to prove intent.
Right. They argued Stanley overpowered Sean, no question. There were witnesses, people who'd heard him talk, bad-mouthing Sean, jealous.
I see.
And the burial, of course. They said that shows he knew what he did, trying to hide it.
Made it look like a cold, calculated act.
Exactly. But then the defense, they painted a whole different picture of Stanley.
More human.
Yeah, a troubled kid under immense pressure. They even brought in experts, talked about intermittent explosive disorder.
Like he couldn't control himself?
Right. They pointed out no criminal history. He was caring for his mom, showed remorse.
They argued it was a tragic accident, not murder.
Exactly. So you've got these two sides, two completely different versions of Stanley. Must have been tough for the jury.
Yeah, how could they possibly decide? I mean, Sean's death, it's horrific no matter what. But was it intentional?
Well, in the end, the jury found him guilty, first-degree murder.
Wow. So they believed it was premeditated.
Yeah. 50 years in prison.
50 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And Sean, what about him? It feels like he's been forgotten in all of this.
It's easy for that to happen, unfortunately.
What do we know about him?
By all accounts, he was a good kid, loved by everyone. It's a terrible loss.
It's hard to even imagine what his family and friends must have gone through.
Right. You focus on the crime, the legal stuff, but the human cost, it's immeasurable.
Makes you think, are we missing something? Could we be doing more?
To prevent these tragedies, absolutely. We need to talk about mental health, recognize the signs, help people get support.
Especially young men. It's like we don't give them permission to struggle.
No, and that has to change.
You know, it's easy to think, this could never happen to my family, to my friends.
Right, you hear these stories and it feels distant.
But it's not. This stuff, it's happening everywhere. The Eckards, they're just one example.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? About how we deal with anger, with resentment.
And mental health. It's like we don't talk about it enough, especially when it comes to guys.
Not even close. We focus on the crime itself, but what about everything that leads up to it? All the missed chances to step in, help out.
Yeah, are we really doing enough? I mean, think about it. So many guys, they're taught to keep it all inside. Don't show weakness.
Exactly. Like, it's not okay to not be okay. That's gotta change.
Absolutely. So what can we actually do? I mean, where do we even start to prevent stuff like this from happening?
Awareness. We've got to be able to recognize the signs, not just in ourselves, but in people we know.
What kind of signs? Give me some examples.
Well, think about it. Someone who's usually outgoing, suddenly withdrawing, getting angry easily, changes in behavior, their sleep, how they eat, just not seeming like themselves.
Okay, yeah. And if you notice something like that, what then? What should you do?
Talk to them. Don't be afraid to say, hey, I've noticed this, I'm worried. Just listen. Let them know they're not alone.
Sometimes just having someone to talk to, that can make all the difference.
Huge difference. And if they need more help, professional help, there are so many resources out there.
Like what?
Therapists, counselors, support groups, even hotlines. And there's so much good information online these days, too.
So it's not hopeless. There are things we can do.
Definitely not. We can't change what happened to Sean, but we can learn from it. We can work to make sure something like this happens less.
It all comes down to caring, right? Paying attention, taking mental health seriously.
Yeah. It's about creating a world where everyone feels safe, asking for help, talking about their struggles.
I think that's a good place to leave it. It's heavy stuff, but it's important. And remember, you're not alone. If you're struggling or you know someone who is, reach out. There's help out there.
Always. And thanks for listening, everyone. This was a lot, but I think it's a conversation we need to be having.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
If you enjoyed this video and want to dive deeper into more cases like this one, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like the video if you found the story compelling, and share it with your friends and family who might be interested in true crime and mysteries. By subscribing, you'll stay up to date with all our latest content and join a growing community of curious minds exploring the most fascinating cases. Click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything.